Welcome to my presentation, and we are going today to talk about why CPAs should offer, or I'm going to argue must offer, cash flow management, and at the very least, why you must talk to your clients about their business cash flow. So, just as an introduction, I personally believe that we are facing an unprecedented crisis in business. And the reason is really, really simple. Accountants aren't comfortable talking to their clients about cash flow. They're not comfortable talking about cash flow management. So instead, we're talking about last year's results. And I want to argue with the state of affairs and just say that, I get it. Accountants are busy, but small businesses are failing at a rate of 80% don't make it through their first 5 years, and of those 80% don't make it through their second 5 years in business. It is rare to see a business 10 years old or older. And if you do the math, 80% failure rate with another 80% failure rate on that, 4% of businesses succeed and survive beyond 10 years. So I'm going to argue today that accountants have a moral obligation to help their clients. That's the downside. The upside is that accountants who help their clients with cash flow will be appreciated and rewarded by their clients. So we're going to jump right in, and I want to stress that this presentation, this material is specifically about how to offer cash flow, why to offer cash flow. We'll get into the how in the next series, but we'll keep it really, really simple for you. So that's where we're at today, and that's where we're going to go. Now, the current perspective, I hear this all the time. Jeff, I'd love to offer cash flow, but my clients don't care. Jeff, I'd love to offer cash flow, but I don't have time. I'd love to offer cash flow, but I don't know where to start. So I just want to share some great news with you. You already know what to do. And if you don't believe me, just think about when you sit down with your client, what are the things you look at? And this doesn't have to be really, really complicated, but if you sit down with a client, the things you take for granted, they don't understand. So, a very simple cash flow management program is to meet with your clients once a month, once a quarter, just to discuss their financial operations and their financial reports with them. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail later. But the reality is, you don't need more training, you don't need more anything. Just have a conversation with your clients. And my favorite conversation was, what's keeping you awake at night in your business? And you let them talk. And this is where I think a lot of accountants struggle is, first of all, we tend to be introverts. Second of all, we tend to be very much about getting the tax return done. But if we just take a deep breath and we sit down and get comfortable having these really awkward conversations, you will see an immediate shift in how your clients view you. I'm going to be honest with you, if you're just doing taxes for them, they're seeing you as a commodity and they want it as cheaply as possible, as quickly as possible. Whereas if you start talking to them about cash flow, they value you more, they value what you bring to the table, and quite frankly, they'll pay you more. So I would argue you can't afford to not look at cash flow management. And by the way, there's a deep study I've done of accountants' websites. A lot of accounting firms say we help our clients with their management. But when you sit down and say, okay, what do you do? They say, I don't have time. So here's the magic. I want to give you the gift of time. And I know I personally don't like to talk about the billable hour because I think that's an inherent conflict of interest. When you charge by the hour, your client wants to push back and get you to spend as little time as possible, and they want your hourly rate to be as low as possible. So we'll talk about value pricing in future, but here for today, just we'll accept that value pricing is a thing that hasn't been widely adopted. There's a lot of hourly billing. basically, if you sit down and you spend an hour working on a tax return for somebody, they're going to push down on that price. They're going to be fee sensitive, time sensitive. It's honestly, I've been there, done that. It's a stressful place to be. However, if you talk to your clients about cash flow and if you help them manage their budget, typically I'm seeing billable hours, charge out rates of triple or more of what people would have charged with traditional compliance services. So if you're that kind of person and you can start to offer some value added services, people value that more, they pay more attention to it, and they'll ask for more help from you. So I'll get into some examples, but the biggest takeaway here should be that if you can figure out this value added services and the first one, my gateway, is cash flow. By the way, cash flow is the carrot that gets your clients to get their taxes done, get their bookkeeping up to date. You can beat them with a stick all day long, but they're not going to do it for your reasons. They don't really care about government compliance. They care about, how do I pay my bills? So if you start having cash flow conversations with your clients, we have a cash flow playbook that we share with our accountants that they can use to talk to their clients. Start having that conversation and they'll pay you three or more times what you're getting paid for compliance. So literally you can work a third of the hours or even less and still make the same amount of money with less stress. And by the way, the beautiful thing about cash flow, once you get it implemented, it just keeps recurring. And here's the secret, your clients will never leave you, because where are they going to get cash flow conversations? They can get tax work, they can, you know, their software, they can do it themselves nowadays. We want to be sticky so they stay with us. So we talked a little bit about some of the needs and concerns. I think one of the challenges with being a designated accountant, being a CPA, is that you're taught you have to know all the answers. And the beautiful thing about cash flow is it's not about having the answers. Your clients know what they need to do. It's they don't know what questions to ask. So I know a lot of accountants are worried about, do I have time for this? Will my clients like this? By the way, a lot of accountants tell me that, oh, my clients don't need that. Nobody's asked for help with cash flow. Spoiler alert, every business out there cares about cash flow. Apple is probably one of the most successful cash rich companies on the planet. They've got an entire team who are tasked with optimizing cash flow and, where do we invest the surplus? But if you think about it, if your clients are saying, how do I meet payroll? Can you help me get a loan? Can you help me get financing? Can you help me purchase this building? Can you help me with this vehicle? Those are all cries for help on cash flow. So they may not say, hey, can you help me manage my cash flow better? But I promise you, if you listen, they're doing it. Now, a lot of CPAs are worried. They're like, oh, with cash flow, I'm going to get sued. The reality is, most lawsuits against accountants come from either estate work or taxes. You're providing guidance, you're asking questions, you're not giving them advice, you're asking them questions, and you're helping them diagnose their problem. And by the way, accountants have a high fact finder score. If you look at Colby A index as an example, use that high fact finder to help your clients figure out what the root causes are of their cash flow. They will love you forever. Spoiler alert, it's almost always related to they're not making it enough in terms of top line revenue, or their gross margins aren't high enough, or their overhead's too high. Those are three levers that every accountant is well aware of. You can help your client with budgets and things like that. So I just want you to know you don't have to run out and take any more courses. You don't need more education. If you've been in business, if you've been an accountant for at least a few years, you've got the experience to help your clients. I can't stress this enough. They need your questions, not your answers. They're looking for guidance. So we're going to understand the role of cash flow management in business sustainability today. We're going to evaluate the benefits and implementation of cash flow management. We have a project, we call it Cash Flow Club. This is not a sales pitch for Cash Flow Club. We're talking about cash flow management in general. But we want to look at why we might implement cash flow management, and we'll come up with a plan for how we can integrate cash flow with existing CPA services. Because you're at an amazing juncture in history, you can help your clients more now than ever before.